So we brought some panelists here because we don't know everything, and they probably know a lot more than we do. So we're just going to start with Mr. Seth Asher. He works with Legal Aid of North Carolina, and I just want you to talk a little bit about what legal efforts are taking place to kind of address the pipeline and just whatever.
Sure. And there's a lot of stuff you all know that I don't know, and I really appreciate you all being here and sharing and telling stories and sharing what's going on. Because, you know, as a lawyer, I can only really act on the clients I have, the stories I have, the information I have. So I really appreciate you all being here and being engaged in this issue. Like Simone said, I'm an attorney with Legal Aid of North Carolina. Legal Aid of North Carolina represents low-income people across the state in civil matters. My particular project is called Advocates for Children's Services. Okay, do I need a microphone? Hello? 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 I can just talk louder. Is that good? Throw your hand up if I get quiet. So I work for a particular project called Advocates for Children's Services. And what we do is use legal tools to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline on an individual basis. Practically what that means is I represent low-income students in the face of suspension or when their educational needs are not being met. So that's a big picture of who I am and what kind of I do, and to kind of give you sort of a 10,000 feet picture of what's going on. And you know, please feel free to ask questions when we get to that section. I'm happy to give more details. So the school-to-prison pipeline idea that you've seen the data from that we've been talking about, it is borne out in all the data, all the information, all the research. The kids who get pushed out of school have all these negative outcomes culminating in prison. And then it's associated with race. You see, and the woman over here, I believe, mentioned that in North Carolina, there are black students who get suspended for 4 times. Like that happens. I've had clients that's happened to. I've had clients where you could look at 2 students, a white student and a black student, who got suspended for having a cell phone. The white student got in-school suspension, the black student got 4 days out of school suspension. That is a thing that happens, that I fight with, and there's tons of stories like that. If you want data, I'm happy to sort of point you to it, but your feeling is almost certainly correct, is I guess the point I'd make. Am I being too quiet?
No.
Oh. I don't care.
Okay, yeah.
I'll finish.
We'll open it for questions right after. Yeah.
Anyway, so the big legal effort, and without getting sort of too into all of the different moving parts, is that the challenge we made, and Maria, who's also on the panel, is going to be able to talk about this a little more coming from the community angle too, is that the issue being is when you can point to that black students get suspended 4 times as often, that looks like discrimination. And that's sort of the big challenge that we make, is we look at, there's a group called the Office of Civil Rights, and it's a project within the federal government that's job is to enforce basically the Civil Rights Act. And the case we brought it in Wake and Durham, we're looking at it, bringing it in other counties, there's sort of ongoing work on it, is that when you have these incredible racial disparities, when you have a student body that's around 13% black students, and 60% of the suspensions are made up of ability to do something about that, and by not doing it, they are either discriminating or allowing discrimination to occur. So that is the big sort of legal piece that we've got going, is asking for these civil rights laws to be enforced, to challenge discrimination, and to install programs. We're seeing some, Wake County has just put in a pretty, sadly it's a big deal, but it doesn't sound like it should be, is that diverting people from school-based offenses out of court. So that people in school-based offenses, when you get in trouble in school, the school resource officer's involved, the first step is not to send you to court, right? That sounds like an obvious thing. It took the OCR complaint and all of this to get that going in Wake County. So that's kind of the big piece, and I guess we'll just sort of go with questions from where it comes from that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, I don't want to get you off everything, but I want to ask Judge Elaine Hill from the Durham County Superior Court Judge, just to tell us a little bit about the court system and kind of how it functions a little bit, and just inform everybody about that.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
bring you greetings from North Carolina Central University. I am glad to be here in Carolina. I have been a Superior Court now for 4 years, but I've actually been a judge now for longer than most of you have been alive. I've been a judge for 22 years in December, and I started out on the district court bench, which is where a lot of our young people enter into the juvenile system. Just to give you an overview of the court system, many people don't have a lot of dealings with the court system. They know a lot about it from TV, but they really don't have the time to visit the place where I spent most of my professional life. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the court system in North Carolina. You have in North Carolina 2 levels of court. You have a trial division, and then you have an appellate division. And in your trial division is basically 3 sets of courts. The first being the magistrate's level, which is where you first enter the court. If you ever taken out a warrant out on someone, or you needed to post bond, most likely you would show up into the magistrate's office. Your first level of courts would be your district courts, which is where I sat for approximately 17 years. And that is where you have the original jurisdiction for juvenile issues. You start out in district court, something happens in district court, you want to appeal it, it goes to the Court of Appeals. So on the criminal end, you also have your criminal end and your civil end. You hear most of the time, you hear stuff about the criminal end where you criminalize kids, but the actual dealings of children in terms of custody issues and things like that occurs on the civil end, and a lot of your civil lawsuits that this young man is talking about, they would occur in your civil arenas. So that's your trial levels, and then you have the next level, which is your Superior Court level of your trial level. That's where I sit, and I hear the high-level felonies most of the time. When you hear about murders, rapes, robberies, that's where I live now, on the criminal end. And also, then you have your appellate division, which is 2 sets of courts. You have the Court of Appeals, which is, they sit in panels of 3, there are 12 of those, and then you have the Supreme Court of North Carolina. That's just a basic overview. Everybody knows about the Supreme Court, I hope, right? You have one African American on the Supreme Court, Sherry Beasley, and her name is being tossed around as a possible person for President Obama to consider. So let's keep her lifted up. The other thing that I did want to mention to you about the uniqueness of your state, North Carolina, if you are a resident and citizen of the state of North Carolina, we have a law that kind of helps this school-to-prison pipeline, in that we are one of 2 states that will prosecute a young person at the age of 16. And we are also, we have done that time and time again. So that's all I'm going to say on the overview. I do want to mention something, though, about this picture. There are 2 things that I think are missing, and I'm going to show you how. How many people in here know a blood gang member? How many people know a Crip blood member? Classism is missing from this picture. Classism. That is very important. You must not forget about class. It's just as dangerous, if not even more so, than racism. And there's also another piece that's missing out of this picture, is home. We like to talk about the education system, and believe me, we have our issues. I have my issues with them. But you gotta have home in there, because they can only teach what you're sending. So, and the middle and public school systems are based now on middle class morals and values. So if you have a child that's coming out of a lower socioeconomic background, the chances of being successful are already determined when they walk in the door. And I'll leave it there.
So next on the panel we have Ms. Rukia Dillahunt, who is a former educator and administrator and a current activist and organizer. And so being an educator for over 30 years and also having taught at an alternative school, just in your opinion, like how effective are alternative schools in keeping students, in school and out of the pipeline?
I want to thank you for having me here. I think this is a great community forum within the college as well as the community. We need to do more of this so people can have an understanding. So when Trayvon and I and some others go to speak often, people often ask us or really don't believe that there is a prison to school pipeline. They really don't believe that. You'll be surprised. This is a very good part. So, I want to start with, alternative education. I taught at Enloe High School in Raleigh for about 15, 16 years. I thought it was the place to be. I thought I was going to retire there. However, I got an opportunity to go be an administrator over at Phillips, Mary E. Phillips High School. It's Wake County, one of Wake County's alternative schools. I want to say that I want us to realize that December 10th, 1948, the United States Assembly declared that public education was a human right. Not a civil rights issue, it's a human right. So which means that all students have a right to a free public education without these disproportionate numbers of people going to prison. Phillips is the ideal place. But we have graduated. I'm not there. I retired in 2010. They asked me to come back. I went back for a year, and then I said my time is up. But we graduated. The time I was there, we graduated, I would say, over 1,000 students. Now, it's very small. Alternative programs, schools, the ideal situation, that we're very small. We only enroll up to 200 students. We have a day program and a night program. Because you know what? Teenagers do not like to get up in the morning. So when they start cutting school and cutting classes, it's because for many reasons, but one of them can be because they do not like to get up early in the morning. So we're able to flex schedules. We also, because of things happening in the community, we were the first school in Wake County to have a block schedule, to have a dress code, and it proved to be very successful for our students. Alternative programs have a place now because of what we have here. Those 1,000 students that we graduated would not have graduated from Wake County schools, with any school system. How we took kids in, and I'll try to be very quick, we had guidance counselors or principals could refer, and parents could refer their students there. When I read the information that I got from the different schools, I began to feel so sad and even cry many times based on what my so-called profession educators had done to these kids. And the experience was really, really rough for those kids. Now, they had to be won over, and we had to hire people who wanted to be there. Excuse my language, didn't mind being sometimes called a bitch. Because I would tell teachers when we hired them, check this out. Is that the first time you were called one? No, I don't like it either. But do you want me to just, expel this student for that? And so we learned how to deal with people and to listen, because you know why? That student who called her that, they had a very, very bad morning that day. So I want you to know that every alternative school, you have alternative schools that sometimes are for all suspended kids. Our school was not that. You could not come to Phillips if you were suspended. But if you had dropped out of school, you could have. I'm going to end with this. If Akia Dinkins, who just got shot in Raleigh, 2 weeks ago, had someone taken a hold of him in 10th grade when he decided to drop out, because that young man was an A student like all of the students that came to Mary E. Phillips, made 3 and 4s in elementary school and in middle school. And so someone should have grabbed that young man and made sure that he either went to an alternative program or someone else, a counselor in high school should have pulled him back. And I'm not blaming counselors, but what we say is that to end the school to prison pipeline, there's a lot of reform that has to happen, but we need more counselors. We need some really peace action stuff that goes on in the schools, and we need social workers and that stuff. Thank you.
Okay, that was actually a perfect segue. So we have Tabon Bridges up here from the Youth Organizing Institute. So he's going to speak on behalf of the young folks. So I just want you to talk a little bit about what young people are doing to respond to the school to prison pipeline, and how are they kind of working to dismantle this system.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold right now, so if I need to speak up, please tell me. I want to thank y'all for having me at the school. Thank you for the wonderful presentation of breaking down school to prison pipeline and going as far back as to slavery to bring it to the present today. My name is Tavon Bridges, like she said. My gender pronouns are he, him, his. Gender pronouns are things that qualify or tell people, other people that don't know me, what I like to be called and how I like to be addressed. I work for the Youth Organizing Institute, which is or YOI. YOI was founded in 2010 in the month of May. It's a leadership development program, political education, and ongoing campaign to dismantle the school to prison pipeline. Within the Youth Organizing Institute, there was a group called NC Heat, which stands for North Carolina Heroes Emerging Amongst Teens, which was a teenager organization that I started in that would basically do demonstrations, lead marches, different things that matter. We try to center our work on people that are most impacted. That means Black and brown youth, LGBTQ youth, and working class youth. How I started in the year 2013, the summer of 2013, to go all the way back. My father passed away in 2004 when I was 8 years old. So at the time, my mom tried to do the best that she could to put a male role model, not to replace him, but to put somebody there to be there for me. So I went through the Big Brother, Big Sister program. Through that program, I did that program for like 5 years. And then the person that was handling my case led me to the Youth Organizing Institute, which that summer, 2013, we hold summer camp where we teach kids about gender pronouns, the school to prison pipeline, different political issues like patriarchy and different things like that. So that year I started. From then on, I just went through NC Heat with many other radical teams. One being Ajamu Dillahunt, which is Rukia's grandson. It was just an amazing experience. I did that for a year, for I think the year 2014, and now I am a staff member for the Youth Organizing Institute. I've been doing that for a year and a half now. So to touch on the piece of school to prison pipeline, the school to prison pipeline is not it's not a countrywide issue. It's a global issue, as anti-blackness is a global issue. Our youth are under attack and they're being policed from all angles. Your appearance, whether that be your hair, what you're how you're dressed, if your pants are up or down, if you're wearing a suit and tie, or if you're wearing flags or whatever. It's the thought process of how you think. How do you interpret the work that's given in front of you? How do you go about doing the work that you're given? Do you have new ideas about things that you want to learn? All these things, being racially profiled. And a lot of people would think that the things that we cherish the most, which would be, I would say would be our women and disabled and mentally ill people, are you would think they would be safe from the school to prison pipeline, but it's actually the complete opposite. Those are the people that are mostly directed and mostly targeted by the school to prison pipeline. To say all of this, all these issues that that we worked around, young people are not just sitting back and letting all these issues happen and go by. I mean, even though the stereotype that we're lazy and different things like that, we are not letting these issues go by us. I think in the year 2014 there was an issue between Selena Gomez, which was she was part of MC Heat. There was an incident on the bus where she got into a fight defending another student that was bullying another student. The SRO, I think, stopped the fight and was supposed to go about by the school handbook that there was supposed to be a 3 to 4 day suspension, but the police officers not overstepped his bounds. He used his power that he had at the moment and said that he wanted to teach this young girl a lesson and sent her to adult jail. In this circumstance, she was too young to sign herself out because she was in foster care, and her foster parents left her in there. So she was too young to sign herself out and support the adult jail. But she was, let me make sure I say it right. Oh, too old to sign herself out and too young to be in prison. So with our group and some other community members and some people from her family, we put pressure on the court system. We went out and spoke to all these reporters and different things, and we got help with the process of showing that the court that there is a big support around this young lady and that she's not forgotten. There are people that still love her and support her. We helped, after she was released, we helped make sure that she got out of, when she got out of prison, escorted to the right places, made sure that because at this time she was a senior at Southeast High School. This would have basically, if she was charged, she would have not finished high school. She would have stayed in prison. So with the community's help and with our help and with her family members' help, she ended up not going to prison and graduating high school. I know many people saw the South Carolina issue where the police officer assaulted the young female. I just want to commend the people that were in the room that had the courage to record the incident, because at a time where you're seeing anyone being assaulted, if your first instinct is to take out a phone and record it, I think that's a very powerful act, because it's just like it's like a mental snap that happens. But for some people, and even if you saw the video, there were other students that were just in awe and just didn't know what to do or what to say. So I would just like to say thank you to the students that had the courage to do that. Our organization helped with a petition because one of the young ladies that took the video was facing charges, because I don't know if any people know, but if you're recording the police in high school, that is, I guess, a criminal offense. But the charges were dropped, a petition was signed, and there was kind of like a caravan taken from North Carolina to South Carolina to deliver this petition. And I just think it was a very powerful time for us to connect, because these issues aren't boxed in for North Carolina. They're not boxed in for South Carolina. These are, like I said, worldwide issues. So we all need to work together to fight this issue. And for just some personal work, I live in Raleigh. As I spoke about MC Heat, we mobilized around the issue called the MOU. I don't know if anyone's familiar about it, but it's the Memorandum of Understanding. It's basically the contract that your school district has with the police. So, and this was a big time because it was up for renewal, and this was a time where people like me, Rukia, and other community members, we had a community forum, and we could actually sit there and say, this is what our children are going through, this is what's happening to my child, this is how I feel about this issue, this is what needs to be changed. So with a long process and going to the school board and actually going to the decision makers, we made some changes, and at first they didn't want to even acknowledge that we had been a part of the process, the little part that we had, but we made sure that we said some of these ideas were from the community that you are supposed to be serving. So our organization is working to stop the school to prison pipeline, but a very big issue for me is getting police out of schools. And also SROs, because they look different. They look too different for every school, even if they are in the same district. Some of them are called principals, some of them are called SROs, and they can do different things in different schools. So that type of uncontrolled power and no one to report back to is just a little too scary for me. And hopefully we can all come together and make a safe environment for our kids to be present, have say in what kind of education they want and things that they want to learn about, and not feel attacked for simple things like issues now we have with bathrooms, which bathroom to go into, just making it accessible for all students to be there and present. So.
That was awesome. So we have set aside time for questions of clarification. Or just questions of interest, maybe something came up and you want to see how it ties together. That's what our panelists are here for. Just be sure to, like we said, step up, step back, and we are going to prioritize Black voices, so I'll call on you to speak, and you can address all the panelists, a specific one, and we're excited to hear questions and discussion.